Hey guys, welcome back to next video, part 2 of the trailer build. As you can see, I got the frame behind me that I finished up in the last video. This video we're going to be working on walls for the box. This is what I'm using right here. This is 1-inch square 16 gauge tubing, which has a 1/16 inch thick wall. So we're going to go outside and cut a bunch of pieces, bring them in here and try and get them square and get them tacked up and welded. All right, let's do it. Alright, well I've got all the pieces cut for the 2 long walls of the trailer. Now I got to get it all square and get it tacked up, welded. Alright, well as I was expecting, that was a little bit easier said than done, but I've got it welded up and it is square, which I'm happy with. And now there's going to be a door on both sides up at the front. So there's going to be one piece there for the door and then one other piece splitting that gap. And then it's all going to get sided with 16 gauge steel. So it should be good and strong, but I'm going to get those 2 pieces put in there and get them squared up and welded, and then this side will be done. Alright, well there it is, all welded up. Door is right here. The rest of that's going to be solid wall. I'm going to do the exact same process and make another one identical to this for the other side. So I'm going to work on that now and I'll show you what it looks like when I get them both done. There we go, got both side walls complete. Now I got to do the front and the back. Like I mentioned before, I'm using 16 gauge 1-inch square tubing, and I found that the 70/18 3/32 rod that I've been using for everything else was not doing great on the 16 gauge. When I had the amperage set where I had it for everything else, it was burning through very easily, and then when I turned it down I was having a hard time keeping it lit and striking an arc. So I've done some research and found that supposedly 60/13 3/32 will work better, so I've picked up some of those rods, so that's what I'm going to be using today, and hopefully I'll have a little better luck. Alright guys, I haven't wanted to bore you by showing you the same thing over and over again. So I've gotten both sides done, the front and back of the walls, and then this is going to be the roof, and I've got it laid out and square, and now I'm fixing to tack it up, and then I'll be ready to start assembling them onto the frame. Alright, well I got it laid down now, and I'm using this new tool called a restorer. It's got a rust removal wheel on it, and that's what I'm using to run along all these edges and get them cleaned up and get all the rust and scale off of them before everything gets welded and painted. So I've gone along these edges and I'm cleaning this up, and then we're going to set the walls on here in just a second. Alright guys, well it's a super nasty day outside, real foggy and rainy, but we're going to be in here welding all day. As you saw in the last clip, we got all the walls put on and they're just held in place by clamps. And today's going to be really monotonous. I'm just going to be welding all day. At the end of the day, it's going to look pretty much just like it is now, minus all the clamps, and everything will be held together with welds. So there's not going to be a whole lot of videoing to do. I'll show you a little bit of the welding as I go along, but the goal for today is to have everything you see here welded in, ready for the exterior skins. So we're going to get started. Alright, well like I said, looks about the same now that it's all welded together. But I got everything welded up real nice. I wound up going on the inside and just welding everything on the inside continuously. It's not beautiful, of course none of the welding is, but I was struggling to just do partial welds on the outside and then look strong. So I just decided to do it that way. Then the wall should go on that and there won't be any welds in the way. But it feels very solid, feels pretty well put together. But the more I look at it, there's a couple things that I don't like about the design. I wish that I hadn't just put one of these supports in. Of course, the last section's a door. But I want this section from there to here to have two supports in it. So I'm going to cut that one out and move it. And I got a couple extra pieces of metal here that I'm going to cut another one. So it'll be like there and there on both sides. And then I had these scraps here, and they already have a 45 on them. I'm going to cut a 45 on the other end and put them in here like this on the four corners, and that seems like that's a good idea to me, to just help give it support. Hopefully this thing will never get laid over, but if it does, I just want it to have every chance in the world to be strong and to survive some abuse. So that's going to be the next thing I work on. Alright, so there we go. Now we've got 3 supports down there, and I think it looks a lot better. Definitely looks stronger. Okay, so I spent a couple hours grinding on this thing. It's got a lot shinier looking than it was. And while I was doing that, these guys came in. I ordered 3 of them, 1 for the front, 2 for the back. And since they're here, I think I'm going to switch gears once again and go ahead and put them on. That way I can get rid of all these concrete blocks that I've got holding this thing up, because as you've noticed, my shop's getting pretty junky in here. And that's one less thing I'll have to keep up with. If I can get these put on, it should be pretty helpful for the remainder of the build. So I'm going to switch over and get that done, and then get back to walls. Alright, so I'm pretty upset right now because I got these things in 3 separate boxes. The boxes were way bigger than they needed to be, and they were really flimsy and broken, and parts were just rattling around in there, and one of my weld-on pieces is missing. So I've got 2 of them done, but can't do the other one. I have to contact Amazon and see if they can send me another one. That's the main thing I wanted, was those weld-on things. So if I get to where I can Raptor line here in a couple days, I'll have them welded on and I can Raptor line over them. But what can you do? We're gonna get back to sides now then. All right, guys. So after switching gears a couple of times here, I'm back on walls, and I got the metal in, and I have my local machine shop cut and bend the metal for me, and I just carried the pieces in and just set a couple of them in place, and just wanted to show you how awesome this is going to work out. So I've got the sides just clamped on, and then I had them cut the front and bend it so that it would just fit on like a shoebox lid. And man, I am just thrilled with how that has worked. Look at that. Look at that pretty joint right there. How tight everything is up here at the top. I was a little uneasy about that, if that would work, but it looks like it's going to work perfectly. So instead of boring y'all to death with a bunch of time lapses, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take those sides off and set them aside and just start grinding and cleaning and getting all the metal cleaned up, so that I can start doing the final adjustments on these sides, so I can start welding them in place. So I'm going to work on that, and then as soon as I'm done doing all that grinding and sanding, I'll catch back up with you and show you the next step. Okay, so one thing I learned when I put the sides up earlier and put the front piece on that turns over, is that you don't want this piece coming all the way to the corner. You kind of want the corner to be free, open a little bit, because the metal's got a little bit of a bend, and it needs a little bit of space to be able to go up tight. This is just a tad bit long anyway, so I've scooted it out, and I'm going to cut it off with my cutoff grinder. And then I'm going to have, you know, a 1/4 of an inch gap or so on both sides, and that's going to allow room for that corner to come across and it still be able to sit up flush. So I'm going to get to cutting here. Hopefully I can cut this fairly easily and quickly with this. Go. Okay, welcome back to the 18-degree shop here on a new day. I had to take yesterday off, so I wasn't able to get anything done, but I'm back today. Gonna try and get a lot done. Got this piece centered up where I got me a little bit of space for the other piece to come over it. Got that gap centered on both sides. It's still a little high, like I knew it would be. And what I'm going to have to do is cut around these fender pieces that are extending out, notch it out so that it can drop down. So I'm going to mark those and get it cut so that this piece will be flush, if not slightly below the top. If you're watching this video, you're probably thinking, what the heck is this guy doing? He's just bouncing all over the place and not recording stuff that ought to have been recorded. But I I had an opportunity to go over to my friend's house a few miles away and get his help welding this together. And I had to throw it in high gear and jump on it to make that happen because he didn't have a whole lot of time and I didn't have any time to mess with the video while we did it. But he has a MIG welder and a whole lot more experience, and I knew he could do so much better job than I could at tacking these sides on, and I just didn't want to screw them up. So we went over there, and I mean, we got this done in less than an hour. I mean, it just fit right together. So all the cutting that I did there in the shop worked out perfectly. We just put them in place. He tacked them up, and then tomorrow I hope to get this top bent and then take it back over there and have him weld it on. And then he has a plasma cutter and he's going to cut my doors out for me. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on making the frames for the doors so that once they're cut out, then maybe he can just weld them on the new frames. And here very quickly, I'll actually have some functioning doors. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is cut the metal frames for the doors. Okay, so here's my frame you just saw me build on the time lapse. Turned out really, really good. That was some of the smoothest welding I've done yet. Not really having any issues. But just wanted to check, see how it would fit in the hole before I made the other one. And I'm super happy with it. I made it 3/8 of an inch smaller each way. So I got room up and down and left and right. If I split the difference, I should have 3/16 just about all the way around, which should just be about perfect. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to have a little piece. Once this is cut out, I'll weld on sort of a back here. It's going to stick out about a half an inch into the doorway all the way around. Now I'm going to put a weather stripping on it. And so this 3/4 tubing will nest inside the 1/2 inch and sit up against that weather stripping and create a nice weather tight seal. I think it's going to work, and I think it's going to work really good. So I'm going to go build another one of these, and I'm going to build one to fit the back and catch back in with you. Okay, so I got both of these made, the 2 side doors, and then here's my back door. They all fit. They're all pretty square. I'm pretty happy with all of them. And I have a little bit of tubing left over. And I think, this is kind of a big door, and I feel like it could use a little extra support. So I'm going to cut some 45s to go in each corner. This is going to be the latch side. So I'm going to have smaller 45s so that they don't interfere with having a latch here and a latch here. So I'm going to cut these 5 inches. And then these ones over here, I'll figure it out, but roughly about a foot or so on them. They're going to be a little bigger, and that's going to be on the hinge side. So that'll make a lot of sense to do that. And just use up this metal and should make this door even stronger. So I'm going to go cut those and put them in place. So there we go. Got some bigger angles in the back for the hinge side, some smaller angles for the latch side. One thing I was a little disappointed about that I'm learning as I go is when I welded these, it pulled this in, so that thing bows like this pretty bad on both of these. a little disappointing. But you live and learn, I guess. I'm not quite sure what I could have done to avoid that, other than maybe put some sort of spreader in the middle. I don't know. But anyway, all in all, fairly happy with that. Pretty happy with those. And I think I'm going to clean up and call it a night. And tomorrow I'm going to take the trailer to town and go to the machine shop and get them to measure and bend the top. And then hopefully take it back over to my buddy's house and get it welded on, get the doors cut out and welded onto these, and maybe even get the hinges on them and weld them back onto the body if we're real lucky. So we'll check back in tomorrow. Good night. Alright guys, here's a little update for you. We were working really hard the other day and didn't have a lot of time to take videos, but we got the doors, the hinges welded on the sides. They're working really good. Welded up. The top is all bent and welded on. All three doors are welded up, and so it went pretty well. And I also welded on these real nice recovery hooks on each side and a receiver hitch for the for a bike rack, and I've got the metal tacked down in the middle over there. And now I'm working on filling in these 4 spots on either side of the tire. So I got some metal over here that I'm going to be cutting for that. I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. I got all of them done now. Really liking those recovery hooks, recovery points. There we go. So I think I'm going to call it a night. And next step I'm going to be doing is putting the door stops in so that we can get one step closer to Raptor lining. Alright, today we're working on door stops. I have my local fabrication shop cut me some pieces of, I believe this is 11 gauge steel. It's roughly 1/8 of an inch thick. Had them cut me a bunch of pieces that were 1.5 inches wide. This piece right here is 1 inch. So if I put this up here and flush it with this side, then that means it's going to stick out 1/2 inch, which is what I want. And then the door will catch on that lip. I'll be able to put weather stripping on this, and my 3/4 inch frame on my door will fit inside this 1 inch against the weather stripping and should make a nice tight seal. So that's the plan, have these here, here, all the way around. Weld them in place, should make a good sturdy, effective door latch, door stop. Alright, so there's the stops. They turned out really well, very solid. And you can see the other side there, what it looks like. So I've got these two doors done. Okay, so here's the plan on the back door. The back door turned out a little disappointing, honestly. If you see, this gap is not the same, and it's very wide here in the middle. It wasn't supposed to be that way. My measurements got off a little bit. Plus, when I welded the angles on here, it took this straight top and it pulled it in and bowed it like this. I guess that's just some inexperience with my welding. I didn't know that was going to happen, and that's part of why this gap is so big. So if I put the piece inside here, my 1/2 inch pretty much isn't going to catch. Plus, it looks ugly, so I call it an audible. And the way around that is I got this piece right here, and I'm actually going to frame this one on the outside along the top, side, and bottom. I'll still be a stop on the inside, because obviously I can't do that on the hinge side or it isn't even going to open. But that's my plan here. I think it's going to work pretty good. And then obviously I'll have weather stripping on the back side of this, on the part that sticks up, and that's how it's going to hopefully be weather tight. It'll cover up some of the ugliness back here, and I think in the end it's going to look pretty good and work good. So there we go. The stops are welded on the outside of the door. It certainly helped cover over a bunch of imperfections here on the back. And if we open it up and see what it looks like on the other side, I got that nice overlap everywhere. And then the next thing that I need to do is weld a stop on both sides here, on the inside, on both sides. This one needs to be there for weather stripping purposes, and this one is going to be here for not only additional weather stripping purposes, but this is going to be what the door catch is going to go behind to hold the door shut. So I need to get those welded on next. Alright, so I'm trying to get the last few things done here before I can make the final preparations to get this thing Raptor lined. And one of the things I need to do is mount some safety chain holders on here so I can put the safety chains on later. So I got these 3/8 chain links that I'm going to weld on the bottom, one on either side. Ta-da! And there we go, just like everything else on this trailer. Might not be the prettiest, but it'll work. That's all that counts. Alright guys, I hope you can hear me over the wind. It's pretty windy today. But I'm going to wrap this video up. If you hung around this long, thank you. I know it was a long video, but there were a lot of steps in there I wanted to get into the video. Wasn't quite sure where to break it off. But I'm going to break it off here. Starting the next video right now. Fixing to get this thing ready to be epoxy primed and Raptor lined, so be watching for that video. I'm also going to be making a video of the timbering axle suspension installation. That video should be done pretty soon as well. But please like and subscribe, follow along for the rest of the build, and thank you again for watching.